Joke's on you.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics never the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
All right. What is up, everyone? Welcome to a brand new rebranded episode of the Hoosier Huddle because unfortunately, after some accidental research on YouTube, found out that apparently there's already a Hoosier Huddle sports coverage in Indiana, and I prefer not to get copyright teabagged for that. So we all collectively decided to come together, figure out a new name. So now we've been rebranded into Jawing and Balling because I feel like we do that. We randomly, talk about a lot of stuff, but a lot of it's typically sports related. More than likely, we're also moving to Wednesday nights because I have, punctuality issues and accountability issues as far as showing up. So, I don't like commitment. That's why my first marriage didn't work. But anyway, we're probably going to come back to Wednesday nights because Thursday night football is over, unfortunately. So we're going to probably come to Wednesdays because there's not a lot going on here at ASAP here on Wednesdays. And of course, I'm joined by my co-hosts here. I'm joined by Aman. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. Ready for that Super Bowl coming up.
Right. And then, of course, we got our man himself. We got Joe. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I was ready at 8 o'clock, but somebody who has punctuality issues, Amon, was not. So, but I'm not bitter about it. I'm fine.
Right.
I can handle it. We're all
Not,
good.
not pointing fingers, not calling anybody out, not targeting anybody. It's fine. It's fine.
Not pointing fingers. Just
But all right. So obviously, there's been a lot break through the NFL. We finally have all the head coaching vacancies have been filled, both good and bad. Both they've been filled. One that was the latest one that we're probably the most confused about is Mike McDaniel for the Miami Dolphins. In case anybody doesn't know, he was the offensive coordinator for San Francisco, managed to make Jimmy G look pretty decent. It's also not really that difficult when you have an amazing multi-tool player like Deebo Samuel on the field with him, and they also had a really good running game as well. So, Aman, I'm going to start with you. What do you make so far of the Mike McDaniel hire in Miami? Do you think it's going to be a good fit? Do you think he can help Tua become the quarterback that most everybody believes he can be?
I think that he's the one guy that was left over that could possibly do it because, again, you talked about it with Jimmy Garoppolo. We know that he's not anything exceptional, and Mike McDaniel was able to do some good stuff with him. And like you said, Deebo Samuel was a big part of that. But also Jalen Waddle's on this team, and he can do a lot of similar things. He does have a lot of the speed and things like that. Look, I think they looked at McDaniel and said, okay, I think we talked about it last week where we were talking about Sean Payton, right? He coached an undersized quarterback and took him to a Super Bowl. I think it's the same thing that they're looking at here. Jimmy Garoppolo is not your top 10, top 12 guy in the NFL. And they're saying, look, Tua Tagovailoa right now is not a top 10, top 12, top 15 quarterback in the NFL. He can be, but he is not at the moment. And the general manager is saying, look, we're going in on Tua Tagovailoa. So Mike McDaniel is the only guy that they felt could really do something with him based off the track record that he had in San Francisco, working with Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, how much was that of him and how much of it was Kyle Shanahan is yet to be seen and yet to be displayed. Obviously, when Kyle Shanahan's there, he's going to have a big say in it. But to me, again, he got the job because he was able to get Jimmy Garoppolo into the Super Bowl to be a part of the reason he was in the Super Bowl. They're just hoping he can turn the same thing around with Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. What do you think so far? Especially because both of you are Patriots fans. So what do you guys think of Mike McDaniel? Do you think that he's actually going to be somebody that you potentially fear out of the Miami Dolphins, maybe vying for that number 2 spot with potentially New England and Buffalo? Because it's assumed Buffalo and New England's probably going to be vying for the AFC East as a whole, and then either the runner-up and or Miami may or may not be vying for second place. So what do you think?
I mean, under Brian Flores, they were already vying for that number 2 spot the last couple of years. So, I mean, really, if they don't stay in that position, it's a downgrade. Now, granted, Mike McDaniel, first time really being in charge of anything. Again, this is a guy who started out working for the Shanahan family and has pretty much stayed with the Shanahan family his whole coaching career. To me, Mike McDaniel is the modern NFL head coach. He's under the age of 45. He's somebody who doesn't have a lot of play calling experience. He's somebody who is always going to be associated with the people who he worked under and not as much himself. I mean, we have Zach Taylor and Sean McVay in the Super Bowl. Zach Taylor worked with Sean McVay. We see this, and all it is now take out Sean McVay, put in Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan's a few years older, but it's the same situation. Can he stay competitive? I don't know. Is Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel? No, but that's what they're going to hope he is. Do they have the defense down in Miami? On the back end, you could argue they do. Their front seven leaves something to be desired, whereas it's the opposite in San Francisco. So, again, what his staff looks like, we'll see. I mean, Miami is in this weird position because the last 2 years, something always felt off. And whether it was that Flores wasn't getting enough help from the front office or from ownership, or that they were just so weird with Tua. Again, like that first year, he should have been sitting. They brought him in. This past year, maybe at times he should have been benched, but he played through it because they really didn't have a backup. Again, like McDaniel is going to be given the benefit of the doubt that coaches before him were. He's young. He's an offensive genius. So he's going to get a longer leash than, say, somebody else who was hired over the same weekend, Lovie Smith, down in Houston, because he's an older coach with a different franchise and a different structure in how the team is set up. I think Mike McDaniel is going to be given every chance to succeed. I'm just not sure he's going to do it.
Yeah, I kind of agree, because to me, it's real similar to like what Zach Taylor kind of inherited when he went to Cincinnati. At first, you have a quarterback. Well, I would say really similar, because Tua. We don't know how Tua is going to pan out. There's a lot of people that are already saying Tua is a bust.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, not being a big Alabama fan, Tua was actually one of the few quarterbacks I was like, Tua could maybe do it. Tua could maybe make the successful transition from Alabama into the NFL. And unfortunately, so far, that may or may not be the case. But again, he hasn't really had a lot of great support with him. So can Mike McDaniel get the like you guys said, get the support of the front office to rebuild him an offensive line, because they have decent wide receivers. They have a good tight end in Mike Gesicki. Brian Flores obviously did wonders with that defense to get them to the point of, they were always consistent. And they were one of the few highlights that the Dolphins even had was that, but they need an offensive line, and Tua needs a running back. Myles Gaskins and James Robinson both kind of proved, as long as you have a fairly decent O-line and you're kind of an undrafted running back, you can be top 10 in rushing any year. Like, you don't have to be a star first-round running back to be productive. And I think now the teams have film on them, have started to learn from them, that's where we're coming to. I don't really know how I feel about the Mike McDaniel thing, because it was one of those, and I'll ask this question to both of you. Did you really hear anything about Mike McDaniel through the regular season? Not even just for like a potential coaching hire, just in general. Did you ever hear sports commentators talk about, oh my gosh, this offensive coordinator for San Francisco is just amazing. Look at what he's able to do with Deebo. Look at what he's able to do with, Jimmy G. Like, most of it went to Kyle Shanahan. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Again, that's exactly what I said. When these guys have these, we talked about Deebo the second half of the season. Like, he's not an MVP, but he deserves some sort of award for everything he was able to do. And it was all like, look what Shanahan's doing with him. It's not the credit to the offensive. I mean, the last month of the season, I would say you started to hear his name a little bit more. He went viral for the Mike Jones thing and all that. Yeah. So, like, that was really his first foray into the internets of, like, oh, who is this guy? Oh, he's 38 and he's a wonderkind and he's all these things. And then it just kind of went from there. You can't talk about one thing without talking about the other. All the credit he didn't get for the Shanahan thing. And then also, we kind of joked about it before the show. but the multiracial thing that people weren't aware of, I think, for the most part. And again, Miami's in this embattled situation with Flores, with having a black general manager, firing a black coach, that coach suing the league, and then hiring a multiracial coach who I don't think a lot of people realized was multiracial. But no, this wasn't a guy who was on most people's radars. Again, I was a Raheem Morris fan. Harbaugh came out of nowhere. I think McDaniel kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, and I agree, because to me, you know how like you order stuff off of Amazon and sometimes it's expensive. So what do? You go to Wish. And I wonder if Miami did that. They're like, we need an African American coach, but we need the Wish list. We need the Wish.com version. Like we don't need like name brand. Like whenever your parents take you out and like, hey, can we stop and get McDonald's? No, we have McDonald's at home. Like, and come to find out it's just 2 pieces of white bread and a hamburger that was cooked in the skillet. Like, that's kind of what I feel like they did with Mike McDaniel. And it'll really be interesting to see, because they're talking about these 2 different trees with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. Even you look at all the great coaches, other than Bill Parcells, I can't really think of a coach that has managed to branch off other successful coaches that have been underneath him. You can maybe say McVay and Shanahan, because you have LaFleur up in Green Bay, but I'm not completely sold on that, because again, how much of that is LaFleur? How much of that is actually Aaron Rodgers, because of the fact that it is Aaron Rodgers? And now, you have McDaniel there in Miami. So how much of that is going to be, maybe the defense? How much of that is maybe going to be Tua, or is it going to actually be coaching? So that to me is a lot of it. I do want to point out one more thing before we move on from this topic. All 4 of them were on the Washington staff in 2013. That is a team that went 3-13. How? How?
Amon, did you answer? I kind of stole your thunder. Do you think that McDaniel is going to be able to compete? Like, do you think that he's be able to? Like, was he a name that was on the radar for you?
No, he was not a name. The only thing I had known of him was the Mike Jones. That's the only thing I had ever heard of Mike McDaniel for. So it really just came out of nowhere when they said they're going to go hire him. It threw me for a loop, because the only thing I could ever remember someone saying about him was the Mike Jones thing, and that tweet just kind of going viral.
Okay. All right. So another thing that obviously needs to be fixed, because it was abysmal. I didn't even watch it. I watched like parts of it, because I'll be honest, last few years, I haven't really wanted to watch the Pro Bowl. But for the 5th year in a row, the AFC won. And just watching some of the highlights, it was literally a battle of who could throw the most interceptions. So again, I don't know why they didn't have the GOAT out there, Nathan Peterman. Like, if you wanted just to, like a pro at throwing interceptions, Nathan Peterman is your man. Like, this is the Pro Bowl. He's a pro at throwing to the other team. I don't know why you didn't bring him in. But all seriousness, we kind of talked about this Monday on Bring It. What does the NFL do to fix the Pro Bowl? One thing that I had mentioned, maybe offer up like draft pick compensation. Like, say for example, the AFC won the Pro Bowl. If you win the Pro Bowl and you win the skills, okay, now you get a higher draft pick, maybe like an extra, compensated draft pick. Like, okay, you guys won. Okay, we'll give you an extra, 4th or 5th round draft pick for every team in the NFC. Everybody gets 1 extra pick. Or, say they split it, one wins the skills, one wins the actual game itself. All right. You guys each get, all the teams get like a 6th round pick as compensation, something to offer some type of motivation, because for these guys, think about, what are you really playing for in the Pro Bowl? Like, you don't have anything. It's another game that you may or may not potentially get injured, even though they're not playing as hard. And I'm not saying they have to play hard, because for a lot of guys, they're out there to have fun. They're out there to entertain. They're out there to continue to play. But we've even seen guys, in practice before a game, get completely injured, and that may or may not happen here. So, Joe, I'll start with you. What would you do to fix the Pro Bowl, or what do you think the NFL should do as a whole, or should they get rid of it and should they try something completely new?
Well, first off, I don't trust the NFL to fix anything because they never admit that there's a problem. Roger Goodell showed that today in his press conference. So
Everything's fine, Joe.
everything's fine. All is well. All is well. What I would do first off is I would put the Pro Bowl back after the Super Bowl. I would put it back in Hawaii. Shandon Sharp, commentator for FS1, said that it's really hard to turn down a free trip to Hawaii. Whether you want to play or not, it's really hard to turn down a free trip to Hawaii. So what I would do is the NFL is worried about that week break in between the Super Bowl and the championship games. Cool. So what you do is you have the skills competition in Vegas. It does not have to include Pro Bowlers. It is by invitation only. We have things like furthest pass, all the fun things that we used to do back in the day. You have it. So all the players from all the teams who want to can go and participate in the skills competition. And therefore you have that for people to watch on Sunday, Saturday or Sunday, whenever you want to make it. And then you have the Pro Bowl the week after. Again, if you don't want to play physically in the Pro Bowl, don't go. But just because, like, I'm sorry, do you think TJ Watt had fun at the Pro Bowl? The guy had 20 and a half sacks. He tied the NFL record. Do you think he had fun at the Pro Bowl? No, because he's not, I mean, maybe he did, but he's not playing football. He's not. What are you there for? You're not allowed to blitz. You're not allowed to hit the quarterbacks. You're not allowed to, block. So why, like, 2/3 of the players that got elected to the Pro Bowl can't even do their job? Like, it's terrible. And again, you sign a waiver, whatever. Do you want to play? Yes. Then we're playing actual football. That's how it's going to be. We're playing actual hit people. Things can happen. Football. And if you don't like it, don't show up.
Okay. Amon, what do you think?
So for me, I think that the Pro Bowl just needs to be kind of revamped in a whole different kind of setting. If we're playing touch, there's no point in playing a football game, to be quite honest. So if we don't want to get anyone injured, let's just make it 7-on-7, right? It kills on YouTube. Everyone watches the 7-on-7s on YouTube. Let's make it 7-on-7, take the pads off, and this takes away your injury concern. And now it's just go out there and have fun. Right now it's just, let's just go make plays. So what you can do is you say no offense or defensive line. You get 3 seconds in the pocket to throw. The defense gets 1 blitz a possession. So they get 1 free blitzer. And on that play, the quarterback can take as long as you want to throw. You can move around. But then every single player has to play a snap on offense and defense. So TJ Watt has to line up at receiver, or TJ Watt has to line up at safety or something. Because now you get Vita Vea lined up at receiver. Who's not going to go and at least tune into a YouTube clip of Vita Vea trying to go and moss somebody? It creates a little bit of different intrigue, right? The NBA All-Star Game kills because of the fact that it's just they're having fun. There's no defense being played, but you just see something crazy every single time you go out there. An alley-oop or Steph Curry launching from half court. Kind of do the same thing. Take away, if you don't want to tackle anybody, then don't try to pretend like you're playing actual football, because you're not. Just take it all away, make it flag, go 7-on-7, and just let everyone go out there and just do something different.
Before you go to it, I get your point, Amon, and maybe it's because I'm older. I'm actually older than Mike McDaniel, which makes me, pretty funny. I should be coaching the NFL. I hate that idea. It's not football. It's just not. Like, I'm sorry. It just, again, if I'm a guy like you talked about Vita Vea. Vita Vea is a run stopper. Yeah. Why am I like? That's not why I'm tuning in. I get it. Your idea is probably gonna have a billion more views than mine. I just if I say that there's a football game on the schedule, I want it to be an actual football game. But that's me.
No, that's 100%. I just don't know how you get that to be an actual football game. I think that's the only issue with the Pro Bowl.
Well, and this is going to be kind of left field, and it's almost discriminatory against like the older players that are in the league that we probably enjoy watching. But again, we've kind of already touched on it. It's really hard for some of these guys to convince them to go out and play. At least as a Cowboys fan, there was Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and Dak Prescott were all like, no, we were injured this year. No really point for us to go. What would you guys think about if they just did like rookie on rookies? Like all rookies from the AFC, all rookies from the NFC. Because again, maybe get the experience, and because a lot of times rookies are the big names. Again, what would you guys think if it was Trey Lance, the starting quarterback for the NFC, versus Trevor Lawrence as the starting quarterback for the AFC?
He'd get more playing time than he did in the regular season.
Oh my God!
Exactly, he could play the real. See what he would actually do if he had weapons. Like, different stuff like that. I even heard people say, have like the two worst teams battle it out, and whoever wins gets the first overall pick. Like, who wants to see it? We don't want to see that during the regular season. Again,
but at least you'll see some actual football if they got to fight for the number one pick.
Right? And
that's the only upside.
I mean, it true, but it's like, okay, if I want to watch the Jets and the Lions, like I can just turn on to a 1:00 game. Like nobody wants to see that. Like. Yeah. He's like, no, nobody wants to see that. And
my question, sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
My question to you guys would be this: if you're gonna go with Amon's idea and do the 7-on-7 and stuff, you don't want referees, right? You want guys mic'd up. You want them calling their own fouls. You want whatever. Somebody brought up this idea because I talked about the Pro Bowl in the one group I'm in. What if we did like a celebrity? I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember when MTV used to do like the Rock and Sock or the Rock and Jock. They used to do the softball, where they would have like Prince, believe it or not, Prince Fielder, when he was a kid, Cecil Fielder's son, before he was a Major League Baseball player, played in it. Like they would play softball, and it was a mix of actual athletes versus celebrities, and they were on the same team and stuff. What if you did 7-on-7 and just brought in actors and they played, and it was flag football, and it was literally like 4 pros and 3. You had to have 4 pros on the field at one time, and you had to have 3 actors or whatever, and then you could have actors who play quarterback. You could just rotate it in and out, and it would literally be that. Like, if you're gonna do it, just do it. Like, let's just make it a sideshow.
Go in. You gotta draw some intrigue, because no one's gonna watch if you're playing touch football. Like the biggest thing that came out of the Pro Bowl was Mac Jones doing the gritty. I don't think anyone could tell you the score, but they'll tell you that Mac Jones did the gritty. That's the only thing that came out of the Pro Bowl.
And that Trayvon Diggs was wide receiver and Stephon Diggs was his defense. Back.
That's it. That's the only thing right? And guess how that got attraction? Because it's different. You don't you're seeing a cornerback play receiver, so do something different. If that's what you're promoting, let's go and just go all in, lean all into it.
Yeah, and there's even a part of me. I mean, it would really kind of be pointless because it's not like they're really playing for anything. But even take like the 2 teams that maybe faced off in say the 49ers versus the Chiefs. In just like a third place game, like who was the third best team out of both conferences? Like, something like, because again, like you guys said, it would be actual football. It would be something that maybe would potentially be interesting. But again, would it be like the Pro Bowl when it's like, well, we're going to focus on next season. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to play. Trey Lance might, because San Francisco maybe wants to see what they got. But again, I think a lot of it just boils down to what motivation do these players, the owners, the franchises have to, have their guys go out and play another game that doesn't really mean anything for them. But
somebody brought up in the chat about, having it like the Olympics. That's always been one of my dreams, is to have like where they would have events that are based off. One of mine is the relay, where you have to have 1 lineman, 1 quarterback, 1 skill position player, and 1 back end player. And it's a 4-man relay, and you have to run 200 meters per player, and you can match them up however you want. And whoever gets across the line first wins. Like, that's fine. There's all different kinds of ways to do this to show the athleticism. Like, seriously, does anybody other than Skip Bayless think that Micah Parsons is now the fastest man in the NFL because he beat a laughing Trayvon Diggs, a not trying Tyreek Hill? Like, I mean, come on. Like, we have to do better than this. Really? Really?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too, because it was kind of entertaining to watch like Hunter Renfrow and Justin Jefferson like throw passes at the Pro Bowl. But part of me was just like, isn't that typically the quarterback thing? Like, yeah, okay, we've seen some wide receivers do that in the regular season. Like, Cedric Wilson, who was Mohamed Sanu, like all of them look like, they're top rated. I think Mohamed Sanu's like 6 of 6 for like 200 yards and like 3 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns, yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. He looks like a quarterback, but put him in a passing skill drill, and it's like I watched that. It was Mac Jones. He got 9 points, and then Russell Wilson was just like
first 3 throws, boom, 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 game.
Yeah. Hold my beer. Let me get 29 points just for me. You're welcome. K-bye. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, again, remember, like, they used to have the furthest throw where they would have to throw it down the field. And you literally had, like, Brett Favre and Drew Bledsoe throwing it 70-plus yards and literally trying to beat each other by a yard. Like, who doesn't want to see Justin Herbert versus Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen about who's just going to try and throw it the farthest down the field?
Well,
Like,
because
come
think
on.
about it. That's been one of the biggest questions people have brought up for the longest time. Who has the bigger, stronger arm? Who can throw it farther when needed? Is it Josh? Is it Patrick? Like, even do like what has made Patrick Mahomes famous, what Matt Stafford has done. What about these like no look side passes? Like, hey,
Mhm.
who can throw the furthest like side pass? Who can make the funkiest, weird throw? Like something.
Another one you do is set up a wall 15 yards from a line and do it with pounds per square inch. Who throws the hardest in the NFL? Not the farthest. Who can throw it the hardest? Who's going to throw it through a brick wall? Like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. And again, if you build it around one solid weekend, it's absolutely possible.
Yeah. But again, according to Roger Goodell, everything's fine. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong. Everything's perfect. Everything's fine. There's fires everywhere, but it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. So speaking of bowls, so obviously we have the giant soup bowl for Yao Ming, because that's really what the Super Bowl is about, is Yao Ming. But and I say that because that's what we figured when Amon said we could talk about the Super Bowl. We figured giant bowl of soup. I'm really curious as to what kind of soup though. But no, in all seriousness, no, it is going to be, I think, a really good Super Bowl this coming Sunday. The Rams are obviously the favorite to win in the Super Bowl. I know me personally, I'm just ecstatic that Tom Brady nor Aaron Rodgers is there. It's also the first Super Bowl in 10 years that we haven't had a quarterback named Manning, Brady, Mahomes, or
Roethlisberger?
no.
I think the Niners were the other team that happened like with their past 10 years.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's like the same four quarterbacks were almost always in the Super Bowl. And it hasn't been like that since Flacco and Kaepernick were in the Super Bowl, the Ravens and the 49ers 10 years ago. Also, one of these great quarterbacks is going to get a ring. Either Matt Stafford, and it's going to prove that Detroit is just a mess, or Joe Burrow. He's going to be one of the only quarterbacks ever that has won a Heisman, won a national championship, and have won a Super Bowl. All three to have ever done it. So Amon, I'll start with you. What are you most excited about for the Super Bowl? Who do you think walks away with the victory?
I'm just excited to see these two quarterbacks play because I think I've been told a lot of people for a long time Matthew Stafford is just being wasted in Detroit. And then Joe Burrow is I think he's just so cool. I mean, there's just something about the swag or something, whatever he brings, he just has that it about him where you're just like, man, this guy, you just root for him, automatically root for him. And I think this game has the potential to end up like last year's Super Bowl where you have this young quarterback who just has no time to throw because the offensive line is so atrocious and that front of the defense is just going to get to him consistently. But it also has a way to it would be kind of funny if it goes like the Super Bowl that happened 20 years ago, where it's Joe Burrow coming up against a team that no one thought could be beaten. Everyone had winning the Super Bowl, and the Rams lose again to another young second-year quarterback led by a second-year head coach the year Tom Brady retires. And I've been riding the Cincinnati train since the midway point of the season. I'm going to continue to ride it. I'm going to pick the Bengals. I think everything is pointing in the Rams' direction. But for me, all year, it's been Joe Burrow just has been doing something different. Against Tennessee, they adjusted when they needed to, and I like that out of the offense. When it got low in the scoring department, they were able to adjust and not freak out. When they needed points against Cincinnati, they were able to rally. The defense played good in good spots. I just think Cincinnati just has that it factor about them this year, and I just think they're going to get it done. I'm in love with that story, and this might be like a whole heart decision, not even a brain decision, but I'm just going to pick it because I've been riding them since the midway point.
All right, Joe, who do you got? Joe.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep, now we can.
Okay. Stop with the Brady comparisons. It is so I get everybody's trying to do it. It's not. First off, the Rams of back then were 14-point favorites. I think the Rams right now are 4.5-point favorites. Joe Burrow is the number one overall pick. Tom Brady was not. So again, like I understand why people do it, but please stop. It's not the same. What I'm looking forward to most is I'm looking for the underappreciated players who have come out for both teams this year. One is Trey Hendrickson, the free agent signing from New Orleans. Him with Sam Hubbard on the ends have created a lot of havoc for people this year. That Cincinnati offense people talked about with Burrow and Chase and Mixon and Higgins and all this stuff, and rightfully so. but they're not here if it's not for the defense, plain and simple. And Trey Hendrickson proved to be one of the best free agent signings in the league this year for a team that really doesn't spend a lot of money in free agency. They got him on a good deal, and he has played up to it. So I'm really excited. And again, he was a guy coming out of the AFC Championship game I had a ton of respect for. They showed him on the sidelines, and he's just hunkered over, and he's just trying to get every piece of wind he can to try and get back in that game. And I think he's going to do the same in this one. Like, they are going to come for the Rams, no doubt. For the Rams, I think it's actually the running backs, because as much as we talk about Matt Stafford, 13 years in the league, he's been wasted in Detroit. Okay, all that's agreed, but this team does not go anywhere if they can't run the ball competently, because we've seen what happens when Stafford gets all the pressure on his shoulders. We're not talking about late game. We're talking about just like, hey, you're going to drop it back and throw 50 times. It usually doesn't end very well. Cam Akers coming back from an injury. Sony Michel basically being discarded by the Patriots, in the preseason and an early season trade. So that running game is really unheralded. And trust me, the play action pass for the Rams is the reason that they're in the Super Bowl, because guys like Odell Beckham, guys like Van Jefferson, even guys like Cooper Kupp, the better the games they have, if you look, they're able to run the ball more. So I'm really interested in that aspect of it. I do think the Rams are going to win. The one thing that people talked about really early when the matchup was shown was that defensive line of the Rams versus the offensive line of the Bengals. I do think that this could be a huge Joe Mixon game. This could be a game that we saw from James White in that Atlanta Super Bowl, where you're talking about 10, 11, 12 catches out of the backfield. I'm not sure that the Rams have good enough linebackers that if Mixon is able to get loose, like, this could be 150 total yards for Mixon, but I do think the Rams are going to win.
So are you also picking a 28-3 comeback for Joe Burrow then? Or
that was not the first Super Bowl, Tony. That was not the first Super Bowl. I get the Brady stuff. And anytime, like, listen, when a band that you used to like retires or isn't as popular, you try and find a new band that you're like, oh, they're just like them. I'm really going to enjoy them. They're just like them. And then you realize that they're not. Because guess what? Nobody's the Beatles. And that's what Tom Brady is. He's the Beatles. You're not going to beat him. There could be people that you think play better. They're not better. There are people you think write catchier songs. They're not better. Like, that's just the way that it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Even currently being stationed in Ohio, because I've had a bunch of people here ask me. They're like, "Oh, who do you want to win?" It's like, well, I'm torn, because I grew up for years watching Matt Stafford, and that poor man with the Detroit Lions, that poor man. The only time he's ever been in contention for anything was when Jim Caldwell was his head coach. And it was just like, that is, they fired him for a walking fuzzy dumpster fire that is
Matty P.
Like, that poor man. And then, of course, everybody's, oh, well, he had Megatron. Yeah, okay. Like, you have one of the best wide receivers of all time, but you didn't have a defense for years. Detroit still doesn't have a freaking run. Like,
offensive line was never really there either.
The offensive line was never there. It's like, no, not same, not same at all. So for me, if Matt Stafford does it, I'm going to be ecstatic. But I'm kind of the same with Joe Burrow. I love the swag. Obviously, I loved following LSU. He beat Bama. And then this is a kid that, third string behind Dwayne Haskins at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Urban Meyer says, you are not a good quarterback, which I saw somebody else make that comparison that he told Joe Burrow, not a good quarterback, you're not going to make it. And what's he do? Goes to LSU. First year for Joe was rough at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody denying that. First year was rough.
He took that one hit, and then everything turned around for him.
Yeah, he was like, okay, here, hold my beer real quick. I'm gonna fix this UCF. And he's completely turned it around since. And I think for Cincy too, it's almost a little bit more realistic. And I say that because you look at how much the Rams have poured into this team. They have gone all in to say, we want at least one Super Bowl ring. Like, this is not a Rams team that's going to come back and say, we're a dynasty, because they don't have any first-round picks, which, again, we've seen maybe those count, maybe they don't. We don't know how those players will turn out, because we've seen first-round picks be total busts. It happens. they don't have a lot of salary cap money. They traded for OBJ. Will he stay at the end of the year? Maybe. We don't know. They traded for Von Miller midseason. They could potentially re-sign him. He's really old, though. Like, yeah, he's had a really good year, not going to lie. But it's also hard for you not to have a good year when you have to double team people like Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald on the other side. Like, you're all that's left, my guy. You're gonna have a good year. So yeah, I almost want to give it to the Bengals. Kind of like Amon said, they're the team that nobody expected, and it's not even like they've had fluke games. Like, they beat the Chiefs in the regular season. Everybody's like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then not only did they beat them again, but they beat them again in one of the biggest and most important games and when it matters most, surprisingly. And for an offensive line that, again, only gave up 1 sack in that Chiefs game. I don't know how, but they only gave up 1 compared to like the 9 they gave up against Tennessee. Like,
Well, yeah, Burrow was able to get out of a few
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
You guys talked about the coolness of Burrow. You guys are too young to remember, but there was a movie called The Breakfast Club, and Joe Burrow to me is the personification of all the male characters. He's cool like Bender was, he's the athlete like Andrew was, and he's super smart and intellectual like Brian was. Like, he is literally, you throw those 3 characters into a blender, spit them out, and you get Joe Burrow. He is the perfect millennial quarterback because he's not afraid to say anything and back it up. He just looks cool when he walks into a room, but when he opens his mouth, you don't feel like your IQ drops.
that's fair. Now, I do want to ask, since you two are my Patriots fans, so did you all also hear about the recent speculation since Tom Brady has retired? We don't really know if Gronk is going to continue to play. There's talks, even from Gronk himself, the only other quarterback he'd want to go play with is Joey B in Cincinnati. Joe Shiesty or Joe Burr. Yeah, Joe Burr. So, Joe, how would you feel about seeing Gronk in the Tiger Stripes?
I would feel horrible. Gronk did the Brady treatment. He went south for the winter and for every time. Gronk does not want to play in the cold. He does not want to go to Cincinnati. He doesn't want to play in Baltimore. He doesn't want to play in Pittsburgh. He doesn't want to play in Cleveland late in the season. Gronk is done. Gronk will be 50 years old and be like, all I need is 6 weeks in the weight room and I'm ready to go out there and catch passes, man. Just post me up in the end zone. Like, it's all fun and games. It's Super Bowl week. There's all kinds of ridiculous questions and people giving interviews, but it's would he want to play with Joe Burrow? Sure. I mean, I think a lot of people would, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
So wait, are you saying that Gronk is going to become the next Terrell Owens, like when he's 50, like, hey man, give me a shot. I can still run a 4.8. Like, just give me a shot, man. I'll run down the field.
And he'll wear a shirt less than T.O. He'll be like, look at this. 50 years old. I can still go out there and dominate these kids.
Amon, what do you think about Gronk potentially playing with Joe Burr?
He's not gonna go play anywhere in the NFL. I think Tom Brady's his quarterback. I think he wants to party with Joe Burrow, though. I think Sean on his good side, and then they're gonna go hit up a couple yachts or something. He wants another boat parade with Joe Burrow this time, and he's gonna get some avocado tequila going.
Hey! If he's retiring, he don't need to do that anymore. Same with Tom. Tom don't have to have avocado ice cream. Like, he's done. He can get a little chunky. It's fine. Probably still gonna work out anyway, but he doesn't have to have avocado ice cream anymore.
It only makes sense that Tom Brady could take any attention away from the Super Bowl. But please tell me you saw the thing where Tom basically said, "Yeah, I'm done, but never say never."
6 months, he said, maybe 6 months from now.
Like, literally, the guy couldn't binge watch one series full of whatever before he's just like, you know what? You never know.
He saw the Pro Bowl and said, "No, I can't sit here anymore."
Right, I can't sit back and watch this. Yeah, there were a couple people that brought that up. Tony Romo has said it a couple of times. Like, maybe he does a Michael Jordan. Maybe he takes a year off. Maybe he comes back. And even Colin Cowherd brought it up. He's like, people like Tom, they have to stay busy. Like, his wife is probably going to be like, great, you're home after 4 or 5 months. And then it's going to be like, all right, Tom, go do something different. Just go do something different. Probably doesn't want him to continue to do football. She might be like, go be a broadcaster. Get out of the house for like a couple days. But I'm just saying, I kind of semi-agree with the memes. If, to me, Tom Brady really wants to prove he's the GOAT, he needs to go win a Super Bowl
With
for
the
like
Jets.
one of 5 teams. The Jets and wins them a Super Bowl, he's the GOAT. If he goes to the Lions and wins them a Super Bowl,
If he
GOAT.
goes to Dallas and wins a Super Bowl.
Thank you. If he goes to Dallas,
Don't you do that. Don't you pander to him, Amon.
well,
No, he
tell you what,
no. And Dallas is one of those bottom 5 teams, so he has to go.
They've got 5 Super Bowl titles all time. Let's not pretend that they're the
Joe.
same.
I can't even pretend like I've seen those Super Bowls.
Well, you haven't.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
you were old
Like
enough.
they're almost 10 years before I was born that they won those Super Bowls.
Like I'm just saying, kill 2 curses with 1 stone. Okay, have Tom come to Dallas and have that be the year Dallas hosts the Super Bowl, so we can either prove that curse is going to be that curse is going to be reinstalled, that no hosting team is ever going to host the Super Bowl again. And Tom Brady could potentially break the 26-year curse that is the Dallas Cowboys not even going to the freaking NFC Championship. I'm just saying, you want to be the GOAT, just do it. Just do it. I won't even be a Tom Brady fan. I won't even be a Cowboys fan for that year. I'll stop being a Cowboys fan for that year in particular.
Do you ever think it's your fault, Tony? You ever once look in the mirror and say, you know what? Maybe it's me.
But yeah, a lot of times.
You know, Dallas, maybe it is me. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's me.
Well, it's ironic because I was 1 year old when they won their last Super Bowl, so it's like maybe it is me. Maybe it's like
I can remember that. As soon as Tony started walking, they're like, you know what? We're good. That's all
Yeah,
the
we're
success he needs in his life.
yeah, we don't need anymore. Nah, kid, you got to see it. You don't remember it, but you got to see it. Never said you had to remember it.
Okay, so Tony, you said that you want to jump on the bandwagon with Amon and pick the Bengals, but do you officially pick the Bengals or do you officially pick the Rams to win this Sunday?
I want to jump on the bandwagon, but again, I think since he's O-line, I don't think, unfortunately, it's going to be a 28-3 type thing unless the Rams just really shit the bucket. I'm going to go with like 31-17 Rams. And I say that because Cincinnati, you can't get lucky like 4 games in a row. Because every playoff game, they were down at half. And then they were able to do enough, as well as the other teams screwed up enough for you to stay in the game. Luckily, it's the Raiders, and you could take advantage of a piss poor defense. Then you face the Titans with Ryan Tannehill. That's kind of a W just by itself. and then you got lucky with the Chiefs and them just not being able to move the ball, them trying to be cute with a lot of stuff, and your defense your defense showed up when it needed to. But I don't think you're going to be able to do it 4 games in a row. I don't, unfortunately. And I think, again, with just those 3 linemen, with Floyd, with Donald, with Von Miller, you can't. There's no way that O-line is going to protect them enough to be able to force the ball down the field. Now, I think wide receiver wise, I think the Bengals have the advantage. I do kind of agree with what you said, Joe. I think Joe Mixon is going to be a big part of this. He did have a big game last week, but we saw him, I think, against Tennessee. He didn't really have a good game. He was like 17 carries for like 48 yards. Like it was pretty abysmal. So he's one of those. He's hot and cold, and I don't see him being able to run the ball very well against the Rams. And I think that's going to force Joe Burrow to throw it, which isn't bad because I think he'll still do well. But I don't think the Bengals are going to be allowed to get themselves into a deep hole that they're going to try to dig themselves out of, because we saw Tampa Bay start to climb out, and Matt Stafford said, no, give me like 10 seconds, give me like 30 seconds to make it work. So
my biggest concern is if the Cincinnati Bengals win this Super Bowl, you're going to see a rash of teams over the next 5 years think that rookie quarterbacks should win the Super Bowl. It's going to be the Mahomes syndrome on steroids. It's going to be like, no. We took this guy in the first round. He has to be ready. No. Every raw quarterback is going to play like Josh Allen. Every number 1 overall pick is going to take you to a Super Bowl in the first 2 years. I mean, we're seeing it more and more and more, and this is kind of a hill that I've been on about how you shouldn't take quarterbacks in the top 5, maybe even the top 10. But if Burrow wins, all due credit to Cincinnati and them and everything, but it is going to create even more headaches and more teams reaching for quarterbacks that aren't worthy of those top picks.
This year would be the perfect year for that to happen too. When you talk
Absolutely.
about like Kenny Pickett, if Joe Burrow wins the Super Bowl, Kenny Pickett becomes a top 5 pick, and
And there's no way he should be.
He shouldn't be a first round pick, if I'm being honest.
Yep.
The only thing we know Kenny Pickett for is a fake slide. So
and I'll be honest, and that's one thing that has frustrated me. But at the same time, we're kind of seeing the opposite end of the spectrum because I don't know if you guys saw the reports. I know Joe probably did because I'm a tiny bit of a Aaron Rodgers troll. Just very, very small, very, very small troll. That the Packers are willing to offer Aaron Rodgers a monster contract. And that to me, because we've seen it with Aaron Rodgers, yes, pay Aaron Rodgers all the money you want and then get butthurt because you don't have money to sign free agents because nobody wants to play there and because your quarterback is taking up like 30% of your freaking cap. And now Packers fans are gonna complain even more. Oh, they lost Devontae. That's Aaron's fault. Like
Brady take a pay cut.
That's a good Freddie impression, by the way.
That to me is the one thing I will never discredit Brady for. Brady did it in the most intelligent way possible. You don't have to be the highest paid player in order to win. I'm not saying take like the bare minimum. By no means. Get you a good chunk of change because again, this is something that you may only end up doing for a couple years and may have an unfortunate accident like Ryan Shazier and your career's over. Like I 100% get it. Get your money. But don't sit here and come at me like I did the math earlier. So the cap is what, 208 million this year?
Yeah.
Is going to be. So for sake of math, because I suck at it, we're gonna round it up to like 210 million, right? Mm-hmm. Say hypothetically, the Packers come to Aaron Rodgers. They're like, you know what, Aaron, we're gonna make you the highest paid quarterback. We're gonna put you up there with like Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes money. Here's a 2-year, $150 million contract guaranteed, so $75 million a year. That's a third of your cap space with just your freaking quarterback. And then what? Maybe you'll sign, Devontae to like a $15 million a year contract just to keep him. And that would be 25 million because I think Amari Cooper makes 20 a year. So he'd want to go higher. So 25 million. $100 million if your cap is just in 2 players. That's over 50% of your cap. It's just 2 players. And then you're going to sit here and tell me, yeah, I want 51 other players to take like half $500,000 and I want them all to be first round talent for me to win a Super Bowl. Okay, Aaron Rodgers, absolutely freaking not. Like that, that's what I don't understand. Like Matt Ryan did it, the Falcons have been terrible since. Yep. Joe Flacco did it 10 years ago. The Ravens were terrible for a couple of years. Russell Wilson did it. The Seahawks have not been very good since. Aaron Rodgers has done it. Okay, the Packers have been the number 1 seed for 3 years. Can't win when it matters though. So I agree. I think if Joe Burrow wins, they're going to do that, and I think they need to realize you don't need them to be on a rookie deal. It's better if they are because it's cheaper. But to me, a lot of these players need to realize if you want to be the highest paid, then go to a team like Detroit, go to a team like Jacksonville, who's always going to have a crap ton of cap space because they're going to be losing. If you want to win a championship, take a pay cut either on the team that you're on if you're in a good organization, or go somewhere else and take a pay cut and be a contributing factor.
Yep. Agreed.
It does.
Say that all my Packers friends. Don't complain to me that you don't have pieces and Aaron Rodgers takes all the players and you want to say Aaron Rodgers is the greatest of all time. You can't have it both ways. You pick.
Exactly. And that's what's frustrating me. So Aaron doesn't have help. It's just like Detroit. Matt Stafford had to Detroit. You mean to tell me Green Bay is run just as badly as Detroit? I think not. No.
Again, really good Freddie impression.
Yeah, right. Well, Joe knows what I'm talking about, but anyway. All right, guys. Well, it has been fun. Another good, brand new rebranding episode of Jawing and Balling. We will be back next Wednesday with some new topics. We'll hopefully see how the Super Bowl pans out. We'll hopefully see if we're going to pull our hair out if Joey B wins. And everybody now thinks first round quarterback. You better get to the Super Bowl your first year, bro. You got expectations to beat. We got stuff to do. We got to pay you like $1 and win us the Super Bowl. Okay. But it's been fun, guys, and we will see y'all next week.
Take it easy.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. We talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so time